Hey everybody, welcome to my professional quickie time. I'm really excited to see you all here, and hopefully we can get some quick learning and then get questions answered. You can ask anything you want during the Q&A, like question time. It doesn't matter if it's related to our topic. I don't care. I'm easy that way. So we're going to talk about sexual behavior, healthy sexual behavior in little people. So from birth until 5, things kind of shift up around 5. Sorry, I'm staring at myself, which I hate. A moment, please. So we're going to be looking at that birth to 5 age group. And so just a couple things. This is intended to just give you a picture, a snapshot of what behaviors you can expect to see. And I just want to be clear that some of them with little people like 3 and unders, you can talk to them about what they're doing and redirect their behavior. They're not going to get it, especially if they're under 2, but you want to establish using that kind of kind redirection language. By the time they're 5, they really should get that, these kinds of games are usually framed them as games, or these kinds of behaviors are either something we do in private or actually not okay or safe. So I want to actually do slides because I already have them. And it's easier on y'all and me. I mean, I have my very, fancy ones, but that's not happening today. There's too many words. So let me make this go. Alrighty, so these are the most common behaviors from birth until basically starting preschool. So we're looking at like until 5 or so. And some of this is going to sound really familiar to you. And the reason I believe it's important to know what to expect developmentally is that it really helps you determine what's not okay developmentally. So the first thing is potty talk. Like, I did not know the word poop could be so hilarious until I had a 5-year-old boy. And so really common to think like saying penis, penis, penis is hilarious. Poop talk, anything pee related, privates related, that's something that we expect to see. And a lot of times they're, of course, A, super entertaining, and then B, they'll do this to get attention because there's nothing like a kid, shrieking poop at the top of their lungs to make an adult pay attention, right? But we do expect kids to start like having fun with this kind of lingo. They definitely have questions about pregnancy and birth because they see that pregnant belly, right? Or there's a new family member, new cousin, even their own new sibling. And so they get curious about how does that all happen? The thing that kind of cracks me up is that, here will be like a 4-year-old and then his mama will be just massively pregnant. And it just doesn't, it just doesn't register. And I think that's because the belly has been growing and it's just a slow process. So now, his mom's, body looks different. So sometimes they don't ever ask. And just because a child has a question about pregnancy or birth, and, the usual question is like, how'd the baby get in there? That is just natural curiosity. And so it is okay to tell a 4 or 5-year-old the usual way a baby gets in there. And then, of course, there are other ways for folks to become pregnant. Oftentimes, we're really concerned that if you say to a small person, hey, what usually happens is that the people's bodies get really close together. They agree to do this. It feels good to their grown-up bodies. And the penis can go inside the vagina, sperm, egg, yada, yada, yada. I know for some of you, you may be thinking, dear Lord, but the reason it's okay to tell them this is because A, it's science, and B, it normalizes that you have conversations about sexuality. So sidestep, if you're working with kids, no, you're not allowed to talk about how babies are made because not your job. If you're a parent, absolutely your job. So curiosity about those things. Kiddos at this age will self-stimulate or self-pleasure at home or in public. They figure out that it feels good to touch their clitoris or their penis, so they do. They're bored. they've had a long day, nap time, bedtime. It's usually really predictable when kids have, figured this out. And it can start, as early as, well, probably more like 6 months. Like a baby with the clitoris can figure out that it feels good to touch that, like when her diaper's being changed. And of course, with the penis, it's really easy to get a hand on that and figure that out. So it's not concerning when kids are touching their privates. It is considered healthy and typical. It is something that you do need to redirect and say, hey, I see you're touching your privates. That's something people do when they're alone, like in the bedroom or in the bathroom. And so I'm just going to ask you to do that, in private when you're alone. So that's a family redirect. In childcare, I actually suggest that they usually do it at nap time. So you just let that go unless they're making a ruckus. And then if you can, they might need a separate sleeping area if that's possible. If they're doing it at circle time or something like that, then that's a time to just kindly say, hey, I see you're touching your privates. Remember that's something that you need to do when you're alone and, not at school. Really kind, really calm. And then if you need to, a little like, let's go wash hands. But again, this is a behavior we expect to see, and it's not concerning. When it is concerning is if they can't be redirected. So you redirect and you get to 3 times and they won't stop doing it. They want to touch their privates, like rather than play, they're sneaking off to do it. So when that's happening, that's an indication that something is up with the kid. It might be anxiety, could be a sign of abuse, but definitely needs some kind of intervention. But usually within, like with a 4-year-old, like within 2 or 3 corrections, they'll get their hands out of their pants. So, it's really it's really great that they figure out it feels good to touch their privates. And also it's really important that they learn that that's something they do in private and not in public. Okay, the last thing is they like to show and look at private body parts. Again, this is back to finding all these things really hilarious. They're curious about them. And, if, I'm a person with a vulva and here's my pal who's got a penis, I'm going to be really interested in checking out that penis if I hadn't seen one before. This behavior is usually curiosity based. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. That is the first thing you should hold in your head. So if you catch a couple of kiddos looking at each other's privates, and they're good friends and they have an established play relationship, really don't need to worry. That's considered typical. They usually do this kind of stuff as part of a game. So like if 2 kids are playing, birth or, having a baby, obviously there's lots of kids know that the baby comes from the vagina. So there might be some action down there at one of the kids, private areas. Or, they also think it's funny to flash. So this is concerning only, again, if they won't stop. Like you redirect the behavior and say, hey, it's not okay or safe to play games with privates. Let's go find something else to do. And, again, you just got to keep this super chill. So with the looking at private body parts, something that would be concerning is if the kids aren't regular playmates, like they don't hang together, they're not besties or super close or playing together regularly, and they are looking at each other's privates, that would be concerning. If there's no game playing happening, so they're not playing doctor, and that can be concerning. So they're just like, oh, hey, pants are down. That would be something that's concerning. I know some of you are familiar with my world famous penis meeting. Where my friend's son, Elliot, and his best friend, Owen, at outside time at preschool, were going behind a bush and taking their penises out of their pants and having a meeting, which we don't know what was happening, like if they had an agenda or what. So that would be an example of showing and looking at private body parts. And nobody knew they were doing it because they were behind a bush. And so it was happening consistently, but if the minute somebody found out, the meetings stopped. So, so that's like the basic pieces around preschool age and birth to preschool sexual behaviors. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, sometimes these kids will they don't have any boundaries. And so there may be some boob grabbing or butt patting. That's also really considered typical. I remember when Milo was 2 or 3 and I'd be holding him on my hip and that little hand would snake down my shirt going for my comforting boobs, which were out of commission at that point. Really common behavior, and just kindly redirect that. So the message is with that kind of stuff is that, our bodies are private, our private parts are private, and it's not okay to touch someone there, because kids can get hurt when they play those kinds of games. And again, a lot of this is framed around a game and just general curiosity. So, crash course. What can I say? I'm trying to think if there's any other little thing. Yeah, so I think one of the big takeaways from this preschool age kind of behavior is that it's playful. So it's not serious business. The potty talk is goofy. If they're self-stimulating, it's just to self-soothe and to calm down. It shouldn't be really intense or, like I said, consistent. Questions about pregnancy and birth, just natural curiosity. And then the showing and looking at privates is really, again, this playful, it's like a game. So when you think about healthy, right? When we think about something being healthy, we think about it feeling good, right? Or giving us a good vibe. So that's kind of what you're looking for here, which can be a tall order, right? Because we have our experiences, and our first concern whenever privates are involved is that something's up with the kid. So got to take a little pause, take a breath, think about what's happening. Is this typical? How concerned am I? And that sort of thing. So, all right, I'm gonna make you all cuter so I can see you. Let me see here. I'm actually gonna stop the share because I'd rather see you all. All right, so questions, clarifications. Oh, I hear one in here. I see them. Hi. All right. How to redirect when the P words are disrupted, the potty talk words are disruptive during class time. So a couple things, because the kids are going to think that's hilarious, right? And so the teacher's job is to just be really calm and just say, hey, that's not okay to say right now. And then give them another word. And give them something hilarious. I don't know what a funny word is. Tell them to say moist, which is my worst word ever. Anyway, give them another word to say, or ask them to hey, what are other words we can say, and kind of redirect that. Always, always, always calm and kind. Calm and kind. And then if they can't stop, then because they're getting so much attention, then it's time to find you might have to have a bigger kind of intervention. And again, just really calm and kind. You can't keep your poop in a group around this. Let's have you go be in an isolation tank. Just kidding. Just kidding. I noticed somebody asked about books, so we'll talk about that when we get to the end. There are lots of good books. Other questions, and feel free to unmute yourself. I'm happy to see you, and I don't have to see you, but I like to see you. And again, anything goes. So if you want to check a scenario or a situation, I'm happy to do that. That's one of my favorite things to do. Well, if you're all going to be shy, I'll talk about books. So the books that I think are the best that you can get away with reading in your professional capacity are books about consent and safe touch, because that's the kind of the biggest concern here is that, when kids don't get that message that it's not okay to play games with privates, if somebody tries, an older kid or an adult tries to mess with them and they don't know that, it makes it easier for that person to take advantage of them. So if they know hey, it's not okay to play games with privates, and then uncle or aunt creepy wants to touch them or tries to touch them, they're going to be more likely to tell a safe adult because they know that adult broke the rule. Same goes for using correct names for private body parts. So if you, and in your center, wherever you work, Please use the correct names for private body parts. I know sometimes this is a problem. You're not allowed. In Amy's perfect world, when people fill out their little form to join you, it says we use correct names for all of the body parts. And then you say vulva, vagina, labia, like you list them out. And the parents say initial. The safety piece is around that if somebody's, again, if someone wants to mess with a kid and they talk about their taco or their hoo-ha or their cookie, that person's going to say, oh, okay, that's good. That kid is not doesn't really know. But if that person says vulva, vagina, labia, that adult is going to say, oh, someone's talking to that kid. And so that again increases the likelihood that they'll tell if something goes on. So these are like basic safety things. I got off track. So books. If you're working with people who are for people who are about 4 or 5, I mean, this is all for this age group. There's a book called It's My Body that I love. It's really simple. It looks like 1982 when it was originally published. So don't get distracted because the cover's not particularly sexy. Probably the wrong word there. It is really great. There's a script in it that is great to role play and practice with kids because you can have them practice consent, which is, saying, it's all, can I give you a hug? Can I give you a handshake? Right. But this gives a script that says, it's like, no, don't stop. I don't like that. And which is a great thing for kids to be able to say just in any kind of touching situation. So I love that one. There's another one called I Can Play It Safe, which is more broad in terms of just being a safe kid. And it talks about touch and that kind of stuff too. And then the last one is C is for consent. So you can safely read those books with the kids in your care. You can, I highly recommend practicing giving consent. I think it's really, and practicing, the kids practicing asking first, being able to say no and all of that. And also you as a safe adult in their life should definitely practice asking first before you give a kid or a hug or even a high five, just because you want to establish that safe adults ask first before they touch a kid. I realize that sometimes you just have to because whatever, and that's fine because that's life, right? You are a safe adult in their life. You're not gonna, you're not going to hurt them because you have to deal with them if they're having a freak out or whatever. So, yeah, so thank you for asking about the books. If you are parenting, the book I recommend to get the birds and bees talk started is, there's 2 of them. One is It's Not the Stork, which is really pretty comprehensive. There is another one that I cannot remember the name of. I can't remember. They're on my website. What is it called? It's got a little, it's the one that's really generic for all different kinds of families and people. You've probably seen it. Anybody? I can't remember the name of it. I'll email it when I come up with it, or it'll just spring into my mind. So in a family, that's when you can start those birds and bees conversations, like getting around to the usual way babies are made and all of that. So yeah, so I'm just going to take a pause. Again, anything goes, clarification. Go ahead, Yvonne. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yeah, it's okay. So I'm going to talk. This was my personal experience when I was a child, and I don't want to make the same mistake with my daughter. So my parents taught me that it was not safe, that anybody should touch my private parts, etc. But then one of my cousins, like, we started playing doctor and things like that. And one part of me liked it because, as you mentioned, it's okay, right? You feel good things. So when my parents asked, has this ever happened to you? I said no, because I had like this fear that they will say, I told you that was not safe or that you shouldn't allow it. Mm-hmm. But also they never told me that I was going to feel okay. So I never said. So no big deal happened. It was something that I didn't like. Yeah. But I don't want to make the same mistake to tell my daughter this is not safe, but tell me. So how can I shift that?
Great question. And thank you for sharing that, because I think we all have stories about when we were kids, right? Oh, I forgot to mention that this might be triggering Anyway, so I think what you can do is, like, your parents sound like they were pretty intense about you not letting anyone touch you. And so the reverse of that is to say, it's not okay for someone to touch you, and nothing about you letting that happen, right? You see the difference? Like, it's not okay for someone to touch your private parts or to play games with privates. Kids can get hurt. And so if that happens, you can let me know, you won't be in trouble. So this whole different attitude. So if they had said, hey, have you ever played this way with anyone before? You would have said, oh yeah, I played with my cousin and I didn't really like it, but like, and then it would have had you would have had a different experience. So does that make sense? So it's really like, I think their intensity around like, you let this happen, right? You let this happen. And you, sure, but not in a right, not in like you were engaged in the play, right? So if that's the, in that sense, sure. But yeah, so a lot of it is tone, and a lot of it is really just trying to stay calm and talk about it in a way that doesn't make your child think you're a lunatic, or that they'll get in trouble if they tell you anything like this happens. So thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I have a clear memory of playing, I don't know what, with not Ronnie Hansen. What was his name? I can't remember his name, my neighbor and boy. And I think I was on top of him, and the dad caught us, and he like pulled us apart. I'm sure there was yelling, sent me home. And I feel like, Derek, that was his name. I feel like I did not play with those kids again after that. Like, that sticks in my head. Like, this bad thing happened, and then I couldn't play with that kid anymore. So I made that connection. I don't know if that's true, because you know how kid brains work, but that was traumatic to me, right? Or intense, right? I remember that, getting in trouble. So didn't make me feel good, right? I didn't feel good after that. So thank you. What else is up? Yeah, go for it.
I believe you've answered this before, but I forget the answer. For a little girl, especially, do we say white, like when we like wiping and stuff like that for potty time? Is it vagina, vulva, labia, or do I say all three at once to cover all my bases?
Thank you. Thank you. So we got really good at saying vagina, right? Like, we're rocking vagina. And the reality is that what you can see down there, you can't see a vagina, right? You need a mirror, you need acrobatics to see the vagina, which is, the tube, right? So what's more accurate is to say vulva, which is the exterior of the vaginal area. It's the labia majora. So it's what you can see. And so when you're wiping at potty time, you can say, I'm wiping your vulva. And we want to use that word partially because the cool thing about people not using vulva very much, or that's not like common, is that it really says, if a kid says, hey, don't touch my vulva, then that will tell someone that somebody's definitely talking to the kid, unless they're so clueless, right? They've never heard that word before. So vulva, vulva, vulva. And if it means covering in Latin, if you haven't used it before, just vulva, vulva, vulva around your house. Sometimes it gets turned into vulvo by small people. And then the other thing is, so if you're parenting and you've been saying vagina, just say, you know what, that's actually called, what you can see is called your vulva. And then you just switch your language. A vagina is a tube that's up inside a female body. Yeah, thanks for asking. Okay.
So, can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been really good about using vulva. So I have a 6-year-old girl and a almost 4-year-old boy. I've been very good about vulva, like vulva, she says it all the time, but I've never used vagina or labia. So like, at what point would I teach her that,
the rest?
Yeah,
the rest of it. You can do it now, because it's for adults talking with young kids. It's really, you can just hang out in the science land, right? So here's what the female body looks like, and there's an entrance into the body called the vagina. Here's where the pee comes out. You have to talk about the clitoris, because it is what people with clitorises, what we get in exchange for all the other crap, because its only job is pleasure. So this is your clitoris. It feels good when you touch it. And then all the other parts, labia minora, labia majora, anus, Because again, you just want to establish, like, we talk about our bodies. It's normal to talk about our bodies. Like in our family, we talk about this, and kids love to look at anatomy. There's another book called It's So Amazing, and page like 18 of the book is naked bodies from like 3-year-old all the way up to like 80. And Milo would come, you know, he and his best friend Ethan would come storming in the house, and they'd get in the book and they'd just look at those naked bodies and have these conversations. So it's healthy for them to see that. It's okay for them to see that. You do want to put some parameters around, you know, this is a conversation we have in our family. It's not your job as a kid to talk to other kids about this. It's their parents' job. So just kind of establishing some stuff around that. And then, you know, right? Can't control them. So they might spill the beans, and just got to deal with it. No one will die. Promise. Promise. Thank you. Great questions. All right. Anything else? I'm in bed. Jessica. I'm in bed with my sleeping 2-year-old, so I can't unmute. My housekeeper's 2 boys have come to live with us permanently. They are 9 and 6 and becoming more comfortable living here. The 9-year-old is getting quite inquisitive when I breastfeed. One part of me wants to normalize breastfeeding for all the boys in my house, 4 of them. The other part wonders if it's more appropriate for me to feed privately in case a boob pops out. I think it's important to normalize breastfeeding. So you have the other parent, I'm assuming, to contend with. Will you answer me in the chat? And so I think it's really important for you to normalize breastfeeding and just say, hey, yeah, I'm nursing the baby. That's what breasts, one of the main things, but whatever, like one of the things breasts were made to do. It's super cool. It's also, okay. It's also, you know, something kind of private in a way, but I wouldn't worry about it, because your boob's going to pop out and they might be all big-eyed, and then you can say, whoops, sorry, and get the whatever hooked up. You know, I really am bothered by that thing with the neck thing where you drape it over your baby. I mean, I was just like nursing all over the place. I was nursing all over Mexico. I caused a stir 20 years ago, as you can imagine. Yvonne's is in Mexico. So yeah, I would normalize it, talk about it, and then again, get a book so they can see what's happening. That'll reduce their curiosity. But you have to talk to the other parent and just say, hey, you know, my guess is, breastfeeding is a pain in the ass. So if you have to be sneaking around your own house to do it, right? Screw that. Like, fine, just say to her, look, this is how I'm going to handle this, or the other parent, and then see what happens. So yeah, don't be shy with the boobs. Don't be shy with the boobs, especially if when you're breastfeeding. You can be shy with them at other times. I think that's fair. All right, thanks for asking that. Yeah, happy to be helpful. Yeah, sure thing. Thank you. All right, got 2 minutes.
What are some signs of not appropriate play, sexual play, that we can notice and say, okay, this is not okay?
Yeah, thank you. So it's really pretty easy, especially with young kids. So if the behavior looks adult-like in any way, so if it looks like they're like adult sexuality, if they're using adult-like language, and if your adult concern is like, oh, this feels weird and wrong, something's up. Your gut is really, really a good thing to help you with this. If you had an experience of some kind of abuse in your past, sometimes that can make your gut a little wonky. So you want to check in with somebody else. But generally speaking, if it's adult-like, so if they're like kissing with tongues, or, you know, any kind of is it simulated? I also want to say stimulated. Simulated sex, like adult-like sex, absolutely concerning. And then if they won't stop, like even if it's a typical behavior, like if there's a kiddo that won't stop touching their privates, there's probably something up there. You can't always tell by looking. You know, kids don't always have like behavior changes if they're being abused. They can just roll on like normal, so you might not notice it. So where it might come up is in language and play and that kind of thing. So if they're super serious about it, if it's adult-like, if your adult concern is high, if your adult concern is high, then you're concerning. And it's not perfect. This isn't perfect, right? But if you don't know what's typical and healthy, it makes it a lot harder to know when to worry. when to worry. So that's why I teach this from this perspective, because it's like sexuality is part of us from birth until death, right? And it's the one area of childhood development that nobody talks about. Like pediatricians don't know what I know, which is terrifying to me because it's going to come up. So yeah, that's why I come at this a little bit differently. Also, because when I was starting my business and I was like, oh crap, I have to talk about childhood sexual abuse. I don't want to. This is what I ended up doing. I'm like, okay, I want to know what's normal. And then I realized it was really comforting to me as a parent to know, like, this is what to expect. This is what's typical. And then looking at what isn't typical. So it was kind of my wade in to learning about sexual abuse and sexual abuse prevention. So there's a method to my madness, right? I think it's empowering to learn this rather than learning all the other harder way that y'all are taught about sexual abuse. It's just really, like, as you can tell, I aim to make it lighthearted, but can't really, right? It's like this push-pull. So anyway, so I have a couple things to tell you. I have something really exciting going on, so I'm going to share something with you. 2 things. So this is the first thing. I'm on all things in good time kind of person. I finally pulled all of my professional training information onto a new individual site. It's birds and bees and kids, birdsandbbkpros.com, because finding my professional training information was just deeply inside my other website. So that's my exciting thing. And then the other exciting thing, if I can find my notepad thingus, oh my gosh, what's happening, is that I am, ding, 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 ding. Here we go. I'm teaching, I'm offering the full Preschoolers private parts and, oh, come on, really? Oh, it's being weird. Let's see what happens. Sorry, I can't multitask. I'm offering the full Preschoolers private parts and playmates class on April 29th. And it's an hour-and-a-half long where I talk about all of this stuff in detail. So I've just been giving you snippets of it. So we look at how to correct kids' behaviors. I teach you an assessment tool. We talk about different ages and stages in terms of kid behavior. We also have a little bit of time to talk about how to talk to parents. So if you're working with kids, that part's really helpful. And if you have, your kid does something and you need to talk to another parent, I got the script for you. So I'm doing that on the 29th, and there are 3 levels of payment. It's full price and then financial assist 1 and financial assist 2. So it's between $85 and $45, and recording and all that stuff is included. So that's happening. And then our next quickie is April 15th. We'll be looking at K through 2nd grade behaviors, and it's at 11:30 PT. So if you get my newsletter, you'll get that. And yeah, that's about it. So any last minute questions, comments? Cool, thanks. Oh, here we go. Little something. All right. Do one last question. Oh, come on. Go smaller. Let's see. 11. Let's see. My son holds himself often. It's on the outside of his pants and seems to be unconscious, but he does it in public as well at home. I've been trying not to be too intense and say, hands off. I've spoken to him one-on-one that it can feel good, but it's something that's private just for him. And so it should be done when he's alone. Is there anything else I should be doing? He's 4. Nah, just keep saying, hey, that's something we do in private, and redirecting him. He's probably doing it because it's self-soothing. And so you might also have an alternative thing for him to do. So a koosh ball or something else that's tactile. And then if you can predict when he's doing it, that also helps. So you can kind of get ahead of it. But by the time he's 5 or so, like into 5, like 5.5, close to 6, when you say, hey, people feel uncomfortable when they see someone touching their privates in public. So lovingly hands off. But he should stop. And the public, because he's 4, the public private thing, they don't really get that. I forgot to say that. It's like kind of a mystery to them. So we teach them about public and private. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much. Yeah, it's just figure that out, right? And really, wouldn't it be nice if we could all just like, my hands down my pants, I'm having a really hard day. But no, we can't. We can. It's cool. Thank you. Anybody else? We'll do one more. There we go. Let's see. Yeah, they're on sale until the 29th. Yeah, so you can anytime. Yeah, thanks for asking that. Okay, my friends, let's roll. Get on with your day. Nice to see you all. I'll see you in a month, if not sooner. And again, if you need me, email me. I'm happy to help. Happy to help for sure. This is my job, just like that's your job. See ya.